Hi everyone and welcome. Father Lamb here, and it's Wednesday and it is May 17th. I just want to take a moment and thank all of you who wished me a happy 40th anniversary of priesthood. It's unbelievable how many years have gone by. Really grateful to all of you for all your prayers. I really am grateful. And today, actually, the 17th of May is the 20th anniversary of my brother-in-law, Deacon Jim's being ordained a deacon. He came up this past Sunday and was on for Mass at our 10:30 Mass, and a couple of my sisters came up and another brother-in-law. It's really good to see them. So Deacon Jim is very grateful for all your prayers as he struggles with the cancer, but his attitude's incredible. So thank you all, and keep him in your prayers for his 20th anniversary as a deacon. You know, a couple of people were asking me to tell my vocation story. I don't think as I get older that my vocation story is that great. I guess I think of our children today need to hear younger people talk. But I thought, well, let's take a couple minutes. You know, we all have a vocation and we all have a story. And I just like to begin by saying the word vocation comes from the Latin root voco vocare, which means to call. And God calls everyone. Everyone has a vocation. Whether it's the priesthood or religious life or the sisterhood, whether it's to marriage, whether it's to the single life, everybody has a vocation. And you really could go back, I guess, to the beginning of the whole world, where God called the world into existence, got together all that mass of energy and then called it into existence, you know, through what I call it the Big Bang Theory, and boom, everything started. That's God's calling, all the way from the moment this whole universe started. And then all the solar systems and planets whirling around each other and the stars and all of that, all the way down to our little Earth. And then the creation of the animals and plants and all the way down to the creation of the first humans, to you and to me. And God calls us into existence, and he has a calling for us, a reason that we're here, a purpose. And sadly, a lot of people go through life never finding out what their purpose is here. Everyone has a calling. And so in my own calling, it happened in a little town called Coatesville in Chester County. I have 8 brothers and sisters. I was the 7th one born out of 9. And in our family, my dad, he was in the seminary actually for about 5 years, and they felt it wasn't his calling. He left the seminary, got married to my mother, and they had the 9 of us. So I was raised in a Catholic family. I was raised going to church every week. I guess when I was in grade school, sometimes I thought about becoming a priest. The sisters used to talk about it in school, the priests would talk about it, and my parents were very open to that and would talk about vocations in our family. So when I was in grade school, I thought about it. It might be nice to be a priest. And I went to St. Cecilia's grade school in Coatesville, and then I went, in 8th grade, I actually went to St. Aloysius Academy in Bryn Mawr. And when I got into high school, I went to Devon Prep High School down on the main line outside Philadelphia. And high school, not so much. You know, high school, I got involved in other things and playing sports and other things. I wasn't so interested in that. But, you know, we continued to go to church and grow in our faith. When I graduated from high school, went off to college. There was a guy ahead of me in college, a year ahead of me, who was a golfer. He went down to Florida. I wanted to play golf and go to school. So I visited him my senior year in high school down at Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida. And I loved the school. It was like really beautiful down there. And I asked my dad if I go to school there. My parents said yes. So I was kind of surprised actually. So I went down there, to, excuse me, down to Florida and went to college down there for 4 years. And I majored, I tell people, I majored in astronomy. I took up time and space, and that was about it. It was a bit of a party school. You know, I got my education. I majored actually in business. And but we had a good time on the weekends, went to the beach, the whole bit, you know. And my father owned a beer distributorship in Coatesville, and I worked there since I was like 17 years old. I worked there right through college, you know, loading beer trucks. We used to deliver beer to bars and stuff, you know, some of down these basements that were kind of disgusting, you know, hauling the beer down there. And I was kind of being groomed in the business to become a salesman. So I had a lot going for me. So when I graduated from college, I moved into an apartment with my brother, Jerry, my younger brother, and we were both working in the beer business. And at a certain point, I had a girlfriend, and, you know, here we are kind of moving along, learning the business and all that. But here's what was happening inside me. I had everything, but I really wasn't happy. I had a good job. I was, making good money. I had a girlfriend. I was living in an apartment with my brother, and yet I had this empty hole inside me. And I say that because I think sometimes that's how God works in our lives. And sometimes He works in that emptiness. There has to be more to life than this. Drinking beer and going to the beach down in Florida didn't make me happy. In fact, I look back on that time and I think it was an essential time maybe for my vocation, the emptiness of just pleasure seeking. So I'm working in the beer business, and I had this empty hole inside me. And I talked to a parish priest who used to be stationed at St. Cecilia's in Coatesville. That was the parish I grew up in. He had since moved out, but he had a great influence on me. His name was Father Ray Hemsworth, and he just recently died during COVID. Just a wonderful man. And I went and talked to him, and he pointed me to a vocational retreat that was going on at St. Charles Seminary in Overbrook, outside Philadelphia. So I went to this weekend retreat, and just kind of shared some of this stuff with the priest there, and I decided, let me take a look at this. I was not sure I wanted to be a priest at all, but I was investigating it. And I just think that's a really big piece of my story, that I did not go into the seminary with the idea of I want to be a priest. I went into the seminary with the idea of I want to find out if God's calling me to be a priest, because I'm not really sure. So in those days, you had to have 4 years of college and 4 years of theology. Well, you still do today, but I had gotten done my college, but you need 18 credits of philosophy, so I needed a year of pre-theology. So in those days, we went to Pius X Seminary up in Dalton, outside Scranton, and we attended the University of Scranton. So I went up there, and it was in my first year of the seminary up there, and I loved it. I love the seminary. And I always said that, even as I was in the seminary, if I don't go forward and become a priest, they were not wasted years. I met some of the nicest men I ever met in my life, and I really grew a lot in my faith. In fact, I spent like the whole first year of seminary as we were studying, saying to myself, oh, that's why we believe this. Oh, that's why we believe this. I was just, even after 12 years of Catholic education, just kind of relearning my faith. So what you're doing in the seminary is you're basically dealing about 4 areas. You're dealing with having a spiritual director and dealing with your spiritual life. Of course, you're going to classes, so you had the academic life. And you also had a field ed work where you went out to, a parish, maybe taught CCD. I did that 1 year. I did work in a hospital another year. I actually worked at Camp Hill Prison 1 year, going there once a week, and learning how to do things and just being a seminarian in those different places. And then the 4th area was community life and the community that you're living with the guys, and that was an important part of seminary. So at the end of my first year, I wasn't sure I wanted to be a priest, but I still wasn't sure I didn't want to be a priest, and I felt the calling was still there, so I decided to give it another year. And in those days, you could choose what theology you would go to, and we had 3 choices: St. Charles Seminary in Overbrook, Mount St. Mary's Seminary in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And the 3rd choice was actually Mary Immaculate Seminary, which is right here in Northampton, Cherryville Road, which has since closed. So anyway, I went down to Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and loved it there. And after my first year of theology, my 2nd year in seminary, most of my friends that I had met in Dalton left the seminary, felt it wasn't their calling, and that was fine. And I came back my 3rd year in seminary, 2nd year of theology at the Mount. A lot of my closest friends weren't there anymore. And that was a lonely time, and yet a very important time. And it made me look at the fact, was this calling from God? Or was it for my friends? Or was it for them? No, it was for God. It was something inside me. And that call deepened through the pain of sort of a loneliness, if you will, of losing some of my closest friends. Anyway, each year the same thing. I felt a deeper and deeper calling to this thing called priesthood, but it wasn't all like Shazam. This is like 100%. It was something more subtle, something that grew over time. And it was the end of the 3rd year of theology that you then are ordained a deacon, and that's where you take on the responsibility of celibacy and following what they tell you in as far as your leadership in the church and everything like that. So that's kind of like how my story went, and to this day at 20, 40 years later, it's like, this is unbelievable, one day at a time, how God calls us. But I guess the point I want to make is it's really the grace of each day that God gives you. It's the ups and downs. In that sense, it's like marriage, and you say yes each day with the grace that God gives you. and you keep breathing, and 40 years happen somehow. You know, it's kind of weird. But the point I like to make is everybody has a calling. I think sometimes you hear calling and priesthood, sisterhood, and no, I don't have one. No, you do. Everybody has a calling. It might be the priesthood, sisterhood, single life, married life, like I said before. And the way that we find our calling is by getting connected to God. And I think that's why so many people are lost in today's culture, because there's so many distractions. We don't really go into a deeper prayer and say, God, what is it that you want me to do? What's your purpose for my life? Because that's ultimately the only thing that's really going to make us deeply happy, reasonably happy in this life, and supremely happy in the life to come. So we need to pray and be connected to God to find out and figure out what our calling is. You have a calling. Deepen your prayer life and ask God, Lord, what is the purpose for my life in this world? What will you have me to do? God bless you.